Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps me out a lot. I'd also love it if you'd leave a comment. I appreciate suggestions for videos, constructive criticism, or just what you think about the piece. Today I'm going to do three different geometric pendant designs. I like geometric shapes. I always like geometry out of all of the math subjects. And so we'll see what we can come up with today. I drew up some initial designs. I may stick to them. I may vary from them a little bit. We'll see. But we'll get started on those in just a second. Before we do, though, I would like to thank my YouTube subscribers. We're probably, while I'm filming this, going to pass 7,000 subscribers, which is amazing. You guys are awesome. I appreciate all your support. Thank you so much for the financial contributions as well. And just the really nice things that I keep finding in the comment section. I truly appreciate that. So I'd also like to thank a new patron I have on Patreon over there. Becky E. signed up today. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate your support. I hope that you enjoy Patreon over there as much as I've been enjoying it. There's a great group of people there, and I'm really enjoying interacting with them and sharing ideas. And I've learned so much from them. There's a big pool of skill there, and I'm happy to have them. So thank you guys. I appreciate all of your support. With that being said, let's get started. All right, let's see what I drew up for these today. This is my design idea book. You can find these on the merch store if you're interested. I find it helps me to organize my thoughts and sketch up some ideas in advance. So let's talk about the projects. I picked out a couple of styles. I was looking at making something like this. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do for the bail behind the stone here, but I pre-made a bezel because we're doing three projects here, so I've already got that made. I had two different stones I'd picked out. One was this labradorite, one was this blue opal from up in the northwest area, I think, of the U.S. And this one, I like the stone, but it's a little big for this project, so I think I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to use some 14 gauge square wire just to make a circle and then a little platform, and then we'll do a little hidden bail behind. I can either do like a tube, or I could put a couple of little skinny half round pieces made into U shapes that the chain can run through. But I think that'll be how we do that. Second one, I'm going to make some little diamond shapes like that, and I think I'm going to make some silver balls out of scrap and pound them flat, so we get a nice kind of flat circle. We'll put those in there, and then I'm going to do some 16 gauge square for these, and then 14 for that. I'll add a couple of rings on there, and I'll make a chain or split a chain to attach to that. Finally, I just took a series of geometric shapes, rectangles. I don't know if this is actual square, it's probably more of a rectangle, but a triangle and some circles, and I thought we'd overlap them, make them out of this 16 gauge wire, put some sort of bail at the top there, and run a chain through it. So I'm not sure if I love this design yet or not, but we'll try it and see how it looks. There's so many different variations you could do, and they'll all come out looking really neat, I think, but we'll see. So first, let's knock this one out. So I got a bezel, like I said already, with some 14 gauge wire. If you've never seen my videos before, I use hard silver sheet solder. Looks like this. And My-T-Flux, which is a spray-on flux that I get from Rio Grande. It's pretty much the same as Patron's self-pickling flux if you're elsewhere in the world and can't get access to that. So let's see. So I'm going to use 14 gauge here, and so I'm going to cut myself. I could probably figure out pretty close to exactly how much I need to make the circle, but I'm going to estimate. So there's, because pi is 3.14, and you can do that times the diameter, which is straight across there, to get your circumference. So, but pi is just a little bit more than 3, so if I add a little bit extra and go 3 times like that, I can get a pretty close estimate. I'll just cut it slightly longer, and I won't waste too much. I'm going to go ahead and file one end of this flat. Reasonably flat. You can use your miter vise jig if you have one of those, if you want to do that. I'm just going to, you could wrap this around something like a ring mandrel and then scale it up as you go. Or I made myself a mandrel like this a while back. I could do it around this and get a reasonably good circle. Or you could just, if you want to, just use your pliers and manually shape it. The thing about square wire though is you can already see on this, or hopefully you can see, it starts to twist on you when you bend it, so you got to correct that as you go. Otherwise you'll get kind of the square wire will be tipped inwards like that on one side. So I'm actually going to make a full, I could just, cut a partial circle like this, but in order to get it really, really round, I'm going to make a full circle, solder it closed, shape it, probably put this line across it with another piece of 14 gauge, and then we'll cut out the spot where the bezel fits in there and just solder it together. We're getting in the range there, so I'm going to cut it, and then we'll just file it flat and solder it. Whenever a piece of silver that I cut off goes flying, I should maybe in the video start editing in it like somebody yelling, "Ow!" See if I have any access to a sound like that that's copyright free. Okay. Let's set this stuff to the side. I would add more humor and sound effects in it if I was doing fewer videos per week. I'm doing 3 videos per week, and that pretty much fills up my whole week, which I don't mind doing, but it doesn't leave a lot of time for much else. It's probably good for me, and it keeps me trying new things and trying to come up with ideas for videos. I think it's probably really good for me. I know that I've grown as a silversmith over the past couple of years doing this, I think. Got me out of my rut. So here's a trick we can do maybe to find the center of this circle so that we can know exactly where to run the wire across. Alright. I'm going to position the solder joint that I just made up here where I can just cut that out because I'm going to be soldering it to the side of the bezel anyway. If I do that, here's the solder joint right here. So I just need a piece about that long. Let's file one end flat. If you want to get a really, precise measurement on something like this, make sure that's positioned over there. Do that, and then we can use it. Something to scratch a mark right on the inside there, so we get pretty accurate measurement for how far in that needs to be cut. And I'm going to cut it a little outside of that and then file it down to that spot. That's pretty good. You may notice that I use a lot of pick soldering in my videos. It's been one of the skills that's really pushed me to a higher level, so if you're interested in learning how to do that, I have a video. I'll put a link up there for you. It explains it pretty well. it allows you to put a precise amount of solder exactly where you want it to go. So, which sometimes you can't find a good place to balance a piece of solder on, or you know. Let's find the center of this first, so we get it pretty accurate. So if we're going to do this, marking the upper spot where I'm going to cut that off. I want it to fit in there snugly, but I don't want it to look like it's pushing it outwards. See, I jumped the gun on both of those and putting the solder on there with the pick. I should have waited just a little bit longer because the metal wasn't up to the soldering temperature. If you get it right up to the soldering temperature, it'll just jump right into the spot you want, as long as that bezel and that wire were at the 1450 degrees that it needs to melt this kind of solder. But you see, I had to wait a little while to get it up to temperature to get it to flow. So I didn't do that ideally. Ideally, it's now pretty hot. Should be able to just go in here and focus for a second there, and it should just go like that. That's how you want it to happen. So I was getting a little impatient and stuck those first ones in too early. I think for this one, if I still have a little piece of this tube, I might just use that. That's a little bit of this round tube, and I think that would make a good hidden bail. So let's just do one of those and solder it on. Just about like that. So I'll be right back. I'm going to go cut that off with the saw. I have an apology to make too. I thought I had the cameras on, and I did not have the cameras on when I was soldering this piece of tube on that I just cut. So all I really did was I used one of these magnesia blocks, and I pushed it into it so that nothing could drop down at all. And then I sweat soldered a little bit of solder onto the back of this, the bezel here. And then I just put the tube on there and then heated the whole thing till it flowed again. So I'm really bummed because I explained it really well while I was doing it too. So sorry about that. But I'm going to put this one in the pickle and we'll get started on the next one. So. Okay, so for number 2, I think I'm going to start cutting a little piece of 14 gauge since I have it right here. And then I'm going to use 16 gauge for these little guys. And I think I'm going to make chevrons and then put them together and then file them so they fit, come to a point. And then we'll make some little silver balls and flatten them. And we'll solder it all together and add some little loops on there. My tool pile gets more and more chaotic as the video goes on. If you guys are liking these types of videos, and it seems like you are, where I do 3 different projects around a theme, or 3 different types of something. Feel free to make suggestions about what you'd like to see. Oh, I also have some new stuff in my merch store. I'll put a picture of it up there. The merch store can be accessed through the video description below the video. There's a link in there for it. I'm just going to kind of bend it in a slight chevron shape. Make sure it didn't twist too much when I did that. Let's try and get it similar to this bend here. This design to me looks mid-century modern, sort of like the kind of designs you'd see in a 50s cafe or something like that. All right, so let's see about these things. We need that. This is some 16 gauge-ish that I pulled through the draw plate because I wanted some stuff a little bit thinner than 14, and that's what we use for this. I think I'm going to use, let me cut one of the, or file the end of this flat. I'm going to do it slightly longer since we're going to bend it a little bit to make it that way. We'll use that as a size. There's always a little variation in filing, so that's not as terrible as it has been sometimes. So these two are slightly long. Okay, let's see if we can find the center of one of these. So I should be able to use that as a guide for each one of these. So I want to bend these also into chevron shapes. It's like slightly steeper. And so I'm going to grab it right next to that mark that I just made. Try and get it to bend right on the mark. Just a little bit like that. It needs to bend slightly more. That's close. So really, what I'm going to be doing here, these are going to be kind of like that. In order to get them like that, I need to file these in that direction on both ends. So first I'm going to make sure we didn't get any twistiness, because that's what square wire always tries to do on you. And then I'm going to try and just file along this plane until I get it flush with the tip. I find it, if I do a better job if I flip it over and check periodically to make sure I'm keeping it in a nice plane. I suppose you could put this in your miter vise jig if you wanted to. That would probably work just peachy. It's going to look like that. So I'm going to try and get those lined up nice and solder them together. Let's do that. I got plenty of solder there, looks like. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and make the other two, and then we'll solder those things together. So I think I got things kind of lined up on the pad here. I've got a bunch of solder still, so I'm just going to flux that and try and solder that together. Kind of looks like an accordion from the side. I'm thinking, I'm just kind of estimating right now. Let's see. I'm going to cut one that length and then another one in case it's the right size. I just need 3 of them really. But I think that's a pretty good size. Let's let it cool off and we'll see how it fits. It may be slightly too big, because since I'm going to flatten them, it's going to spread them out a little bit. Well, that's slightly small, so let's hammer it flat and see what happens. Probably am going to file this a little smoother on the edge anyway. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to use something in this size range then. Snug enough to stay, so I think that's probably good. Sitting pretty flat. I'm just going to kind of file these like that, like I did on the other piece. And then mount a little jump ring on top of each of those, probably 20 gauge wire. I will make a little chain for that too while this is pickling. We'll get started on the third one here. Since this one's going to be a little complicated, I did a few things to expedite, like I made this, although I made it a little bigger. So I was thinking I might move that down a little bit like that. So you can see I got the width of that thing that I got to cut out. So again, I'll probably just cut it this way, kind of in the middle. That way I can kind of file this to match that angle. I think that I'm going to use my miter vise jig. So to start with, if you've never used one of these things, these are great. Nobody bothered to tell me about them for like 25 years, but thank you, the people who told me about them recently. Make it easier to get nice 45-degree angles on stuff. I think with this rectangle, like I said, I'm going to move it up just a slight bit so it's not touching this point. And that'll move this up a little bit too. And that's fine, I want it to be that way, but I still want to make it about the same length. So we also need the short side. That side. So I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of these pieces for this one, and then make the ones for this one as well in the same manner. I don't think you probably need to watch me do all of those since you just saw the basic idea. Then we'll solder them all together, and then we'll start piecing this together with the rest of that. The end square wire had tipped a little bit that way, so I reflowed it and tried to push it back in that direction. Hopefully it was successful. Nothing like that. Let's start with the circle and the square. Circle gets the square. Dating myself. If you remember that show. Hollywood Squares, I think. Does that leave me enough room to do? Yeah, I think so. I think let's do this step next. Oh, easy. Alright, let's see if we can get this lined up nicely. I think I inadvertently sort of created a human-shaped figure. I wasn't trying to. That's interesting. I should probably analyze that and find out what's going on with my brain. Do a little metacognition. So I went ahead and made a little box bail where I just took some 22 gauge sheet, made it into kind of a staple shape, and then I soldered it to another piece like that. So it's, but I kind of want a real angular front profile on this. So the one side that I can get really sharply angled is the one on the side that was the bottom. These other ones are a little bit rounded, and so I'm going to solder it so that the sharp edges are to the front here. Oopsie. Come here. While that's pickling, I'll probably go have some dinner, but I'm not going to show you setting the stone on this one, and or any of the polishing stages or anything like that. But I will get them all ready to go. If you want to see how to set a cabochon, I'll put a link right up here. finished them up. Set the stone on this little blue opal one. That came out nice. It's a pleasing design, I think. Here's this other one. I put a little split chain on, like I said. I think that's nice. I'm not sure which one I like the best. And there's this one here. I think I like them all this time. So, all right. Well, I will take better pictures and put them at the end of the video. Okay, well that was 3 different geometric pendants. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. That helps out so much. I'd also love it if you'd leave a comment if you have suggestions for changes or videos or challenges you'd like me to try. Just let me know. Before you leave, you might want to consider checking out my playlist page. I've split things up into a whole bunch of different playlists, and it may make things easier for you to navigate. So check that out before you subscribe, and then watch some of my videos. Oh, and don't forget to check out the video description down below. There's all sorts of relevant links, like if you want to check out my Patreon, if you wanted to just give me a tip by buying me a coffee, which actually just gives me money for supplies. Or you can check out my merch page where you can get that lovely Pickle Time tumbler and maybe a design idea book. So thanks again for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.